Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers. Come on, me in it and join in the fun. Travel all over Australia. Ask the Leyland, ask the Leyland, ask the Leyland brothers.
In Tasmania, we look at two craftsmen working with the almost extinct Huon Pine. Do you know what a thunderbird is? To find a thunder egg, we had to go up here to the Tambourine Mountains in Queensland.
And then we take our cameras to Victoria, to a farm near Bendigo, to show you how eucalyptus oil is extracted from the trees.
Is there much Huon Pine left today? Asks Gary Anderson of Launceston, Tasmania. And can you show me someone making spinning wheels? Asks Suzanne Reid of Cooks Hill, New South Wales. To answer both of these letters, we're going to meet two Tasmanian craftsmen, wood carver Bob Haslem and wood turner Cecil Eyre. First, let's find out about Huon Pine. The Gordon River on Tasmania's west coast is the home of Huon Pine. Green gold, as it was once known, is the best boat-building timber in the world. Huon Pine was cut extensively here for 35 years and floated in log rafts down to the mill at Strawn. It grows near water in patches and takes 500 years to mature. Now only a few stands remain, preserved in forest reserves.
This is Huon Pine, isn't it, Bob?
That's Huon Pine. That lay on the beach on the west coast for about 90 years. And the only deterioration in it is about a 1/16 of an inch in the surface structure. That came in to be made into a tabletop. But that has been exposed to the weather on the beach for 90 years.
And that bathtub there, what's that? That's also Huon Pine?
This is Huon Pine. This was an old bathtub that was probably convict built. Is reputed to have come out of the convict buildings in Launceston, the old jail. Later it was used in one of the hotels here until modern baths came in, and then of course it was wound up for wood carver's material.
Bob is a full-time wood carver and he cannot keep up the supply of Huon Pine carvings to meet the demand. Collectors are snapping up these delicately made items not only for their artistic value but for the Huon Pine itself. Bob salvaged this piece of timber from an old hotel in Hobart. Huon Pine is in high demand because of its durability. This, combined with its slow growth rate, has caused its downfall. Huon Pine is now almost extinct.
Well, is Huon Pine easy to work?
Well, it's a very, very soft timber. It's very dense in the fibre. It's a very beautiful timber. Well, I think it is one of Tasmania's best timbers. I suppose it would be one of the best wood carving timbers in the world. This came from Corinna, down on the west coast. Most of it comes from the Gordon River, from where the Hydroelectric Commission are building their new dams. This is the last of the actual Huon Pine. I don't suppose there'll be much more for the taking after this lot's gone.
But when you work these, do you have a pattern, or do you just start?
Oh, no, no, except on small things you have a pattern for these small things, but everything being handmade, all has its own individual characteristic. Yes,
keep working.
But as for patterns, not at all. We just select native animals and birds, flowers and so forth. It's the timber that dictates the style of thing. You can get some quite magnificent ones coming down, going up, and so forth, but there's never any two that are identical.
That looks almost as if the piece of timber was that shape, wasn't it?
That was a piece of wood, a piece of Huon Pine that I picked up on the beach, and it is actually that shape. I just shaped it into this figure of a Madonna, but it was that shape.
And the chair, did you make that?
Yes, the chair, this was this timber was cut in 1831, and served as a church pew up till about 1970, when I salvaged the timber and made it into this chair, this spinning chair. It's an old English type of three-legged spinning chair or corner chair. And the timber, although it's been down since 1831, is as good today as when it was actually cut. It's magnificent timber, it never deteriorates.
That's the second piece of furniture.
This is the second piece of furniture, and we'll see probably my lifetime out, and someone else can make another piece of furniture after it then.
To answer Suzanne's letter, we go to Hobart to meet Cecil Eyre, who makes spinning wheels from Huon Pine.
Well, I'm making it out of Huon Pine. The advantage of Huon Pine is, of course, apart from the fact that it's being close grained, has an oily nature and doesn't move. It's only found in Tasmania to any extent, although there are one or two species very similar found in Peru, in South America. The Huon Pine itself takes an enormously long time to grow. In fact, a tree 2,500 years old was recently cut down in the Gordon River. It's one of the best timbers, I'd say, to use on a lathe.
Cecil's Huon Pine wheels are made to his own design and very popular in Tasmania. With the increased interest in traditional crafts, spinning and weaving guilds are being formed all over the country. Mrs. Eyre tests all the finished wheels. She doesn't regard this as a chore, but as an enjoyable and relaxing pastime. This one is for their 9-year-old granddaughter.
Right, the wheel has its traditional names and all the parts of it. These are the maidens, and they're held by the mother of all. And of course these are the standards and the footman and the pedal. And the fellows form the wheel. Now the other part, this is called the lazy Kate. The purpose of that is to hold the spun wool so that it can be replied at a later time.
There's a very interesting story about spinning. Years and years and years ago, when people had to make their own clothing, spinning had to be done by the families themselves. So the first daughter born in a family was taught to spin at the age of about 6 years old and was never allowed to play or have any other activities except spinning, for she had to clothe the family. And then when her sisters married, she had to spin to clothe the families of the sisters until the sister had a daughter that could take over from her. So this poor girl had to spin for her whole life. And as she was not allowed to marry, that's how the name spinster came into being. But of course these days people can be spinsters without having even seen a spinning wheel. But
the Huon Pine itself these days, there's only a very limited amount of it available. There have been some forests of it, or some stands of it, permanently reserved for the future. But the commercial wood is going to be a thing of the past in a very short time.
The Huon Pine's been almost at a dead end for a good number of years. But I suppose the wood carvers and turners and so forth will find enough small stuff. There's plenty of small stuff to be found.
The beauty of the Huon Pine will live on in these works of art. Miss Margaret Noble of Adamstown, New South Wales asks, what is a thunder egg? We didn't know, so we have come to Mount Tambourine, south of Brisbane in Queensland, where we were told the thunderbird nests. Here at Thunderbird Park, rock hunter Roop Trahan and his friend Alf assure us they can find some thunder eggs.
Where do you find the thunder eggs, Roop?
Oh, go get into this type of country, the clay country, and look around, they're everywhere in this area. all you've got to do is be strong enough in the muscles and weak enough in the head and dig them, and you're right. You're gone.
What, all these other rocks lying around, they're just ordinary rocks?
No, they're thunder eggs or part thereof.
Are they?
Yeah, in this area, in the lease area, there are only thunder eggs.
There are only 3 thunder egg locations in Australia, and the biggest specimens are found here at Mount Tambourine. The thunder eggs are found at random in this area of clayey ground.
That's a little one.
Look down there.
Oh, yeah, it is. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to get him around him pretty careful. Otherwise you can break him in half. We'll see how we go anyway. He's unfortunately he was in half.
It was already broken, was it?
Yeah.
He's been good and too,
But he'd still be a pretty rock. And you see the centre, there's a real crystally agate in the centre there, see? You're not a rock hunter. A rock hunter's got to have a great big flat wet tongue.
Yeah.
Hello, got another one. It's a bit bigger. And that one.
Big one. Mm.
Should be a nice one. Can you feel the weight of him?
Oh. Gee, it's
Pretty
heavier
solid,
than it
isn't
looks,
it?
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
No giant bird laid this. Roop assures us we will realise why people go to such lengths to find a thunder egg when he has sliced it in half with the diamond saw.
A beauty, and I really mean a beauty.
The beautiful secret of the thunder egg is revealed. Spherolites, to use their correct name, were formed in the aftermath of spectacular volcanic eruptions. Silica-rich molten lava bubbling with steam and gases is essential for the formation of spherolites. Crystallization of feldspar occurs around the bubbles within the cooling lava. Pressure of trapped steam and gases forces the rocks apart, leaving gaping cavities. Later the cavities are filled with agate, chalcedony and quartz. These beautiful natural works of art are highly valued in the collections of gemologists. This is the collection of the owners of Thunderbird Park, Bert and May Parker. There are other practical uses for thunder eggs, as Roop explains to Pat.
We can't take a slab out of the rock, cut it out, say, 1/2 inch thick, 3/4 and 3/8 of an inch thick or something like that. And then you lay it in, make a frame around it, and lay it down and do pour polyester resin around it. And you can make it then into tabletops, say, like.
That's pretty, isn't it?
Eh? That's the polyester resin, and it's coloured underneath with the black, and it shows the slab of the stone through it.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Well, Margaret, I hope that shows you what a thunder egg is. Mother Nature's handwork at its very best.
How many times have you walked through the Australian bush and picked yourself a piece of eucalyptus tree and smelt the eucalyptus fragrance? I suppose I've done it hundreds of times. Most of us have at one time or another. But I hadn't really thought about how they get the eucalyptus oil from the trees. That is not until we received this letter from Mr. and Mrs. N.G. Gibbs from Edwardstown in South Australia. And they say, we admire the Australian bush so much. We love the eucalyptus trees, the gum trees. We've often wondered, though, just how the eucalyptus is extracted from them. Could you please answer this inquiry? Well, that rather simple request has brought us to this farm near Bendigo in Victoria, in an area known as the Whipstick. And here there is a eucalyptus distillery run by Ollie Hartland. And it's been in Ollie's family now since just before the turn of the century. Let's just go and see how eucalyptus is extracted from the trees. The working day for the Hartland family begins at dawn. Jeff Hartland's first task is to light the boiler fire ready for the day's work. It will take a few hours to get up steam, and in that time the first harvest of leaves will be ready for treatment. Blue mallee eucalyptus scrub has been harvested on this property for 70 years. But today, Jeff departs from his father's methods and uses a tractor harvester to cut the leaves. In a few hours, he has enough for the distilling process to begin. It takes only minutes to truck it back to the farm. Surprisingly, the mallee suckers can be harvested time and time again, as Jeff's father, Ollie, explains.
Now this is the virgin mallee in its full-grown stage. It grows to that, similar to that, and then those trees they have been rolled down in the early days with bullock teams, traction engines, horse teams, and now with tractors. And those trunks are burnt up, and then the young growth at 2 years old comes to the same growth as you see here. Now these leaves, if they are cut at around about 2 years old and they are cut the right way and the right time, they are like an orchard. They will regenerate, well, I would say forever.
And on some parts of the property, only a few kilometres from the farmhouse, the leaves have been harvested for over 70 years. Here, the traditional hand-cutting techniques have left odd-shaped stumps scattered through the paddock. But this way, Ollie Hartland can graze sheep on the same land. The hard life of the hand cutter is not everyone's idea of a good way to earn a living, and these days only one or two are left.
Gotta pick all the taps up before you get your money in and all. Leave nothing. Better than them bloody racehorses.
When there is enough for a load, the pickup truck is brought in ready to take it back to the distillery at the farmhouse. Ollie stokes up the boiler, ready to start the extraction process. The process takes place underground, in a brick-lined pit. If the leaves are left for a few days to dry out, the extraction process is quicker. When full, the steel lid is lifted into place using a steam winch. The lid is sealed with mud to keep the leaves within their giant pressure cooker. The only outlet for the steam, which is forced through the leaves, is at the top of the lid. Once started, the process simply involves stoking the fire to generate plenty of steam and watching the recirculating pump to make sure the boiler doesn't run out of water. This steam-driven pump replenishes the water. The steam dissolves the eucalyptus crystals contained in each leaf of the mallee and carries it off into the condenser coils under the cool water of the dam. The condensed water trickles into an underground receiving vat to settle. After about 4 hours, all the eucalyptus has been extracted and the steam winch is used to open the pit and remove the waste material. This process, largely unchanged, has been taking place at the Heartlands farm since Ollie's father took out the selection in the latter part of last century. And now his son Jeff seems destined to carry on the process, for there is no substitute for the oil. It is used in pharmaceutical products all over the world, as well as in confectionery and air fresheners. About 1/3 of the old leaves are used as fuel for the boiler, and then the process is ready to start all over again with a fresh load of leaves. At the end of the condenser pipes, the last of the water and oil trips into the underground vat. The oil is lighter and floats on the surface of the water. By watching the ratio of water to oil, Ollie can judge when the leaves are exhausted. The finished product can be bottled for sale to visitors or to commercial wholesalers. The oil requires no further distilling, as do oils from other trees. According to Ollie, the blue mallee oil is the purest.
It is the best medicinal oil in the world, and it only grows north of Bendigo, up at Inglewood and Wedderburn, and a few other isolated places in Victoria, and it does grow at West Wyalong and New South Wales too. A lot of the other there is eucalyptus in all the other trees, or most of the other trees. A lot of is not a medicinal purpose from the first distillation, but this blue mallee eucalyptus is.
The blue mallee goes on producing oil year after year, and we no longer wonder how it's extracted, thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Gibbs in South Australia, who asked the Leyland brothers.
Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, no matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers.